This is episode number 22, Finding Motivation That Sticks. Welcome to the Doc Fitness Podcast, where it's all about developing your mindset, training and nutritional knowledge so you can lose body fat and build muscle effectively while still living a real life. I am your host, David O'Connor. Now let's get into the show. How are we keeping, guys? And a big welcome back to the Doc Fitness Podcast, and welcome back to the latest episode of Monday Thoughts as well, where they're basically short, to the point episodes with whatever's kind of floating around in my head for that day, or maybe based on a question we might have got over the past week. And kind of that's what this episode is about too. I wanted to kind of bring up the topic of motivation, and I know it's such a kind of cringe-worthy word these days, and it gets thrown around an awful lot, and people think that it just kind of it comes out of thin air, or comes out of if you watch a fucking YouTube video or whatnot. And I just kind of want to give you kind of our thought process behind it and what we believe kind of is a factor in long-term motivation. I'm not going to say it's the fucking this is where motivation comes from or anything like that, but I'm just going to give you what we believe is a massive kind of important player in that. And I want to use the analogy of kind of like a car journey, right? Because think of like if you're starting back in the gym to maybe drop some body fat, to build some muscle, to get stronger, to get fitter, whatever it is. That's fine. You kind of know you want those things. Everybody wants those things when they're in the gym, because that's fundamentally why you go to the gym. But the biggest thing that people forget about is having an actual proper reason why behind doing that in the first place. Because yeah, you want to get stronger, and yeah, you want to lose, maybe let's just pretend like somebody wants to lose 5 stone versus somebody wants to lose 15 pounds. Even though they're two drastic different goals, it might be the same in kind of that person's head for them, as to the reasons why they're doing it. So like what I mean by that is like, it's not just to go to the gym and to tone up and to drop that body fat in the first place. It's to do that so you can either live a higher quality of life, to maybe a bit more self-confident in yourself, maybe to be a role model for the kids. Those kind of really deep kind of onion layer reasons why you're peeling back that kind of onion layer to get to the core of why you're doing it in the first place. Because when the days come where you just couldn't be bothered to hit the gym, or you couldn't be bothered to kind of, let's say, eat healthy for that day, or you let a bad day turn into a bad few days, turn into a bad week, bad few months, this is where having this kind of strong reason why behind doing what you're doing, this is kind of where we think anyway long-term motivation comes from. And then when you set an actual goal, then these goals are based off that kind of overriding principle of having that why there in the first place. Because if you're setting a long-term goal, where is that long-term goal directed towards? And then a short-term goal then is literally the long-term goal broken down, but still it's driven behind kind of like this bigger picture reason why. It's kind of like when it comes to kind of weight loss or weight gain, like calorie balance, energy balance is the fundamental principle at the end of the day. Whereas if somebody was kind of shooting for like a part of that, like they're worrying about how much carbs to eat or how much fats to eat, how much protein to eat, without looking at the kind of bigger picture, calorie picture, you're missing the whole bigger picture behind things. I know if somebody had kind of like controlled their macronutrient targets, they're going to control calories anyway. But again, it's just kind of focusing on the wrong thing. Whereas if you're focusing on calorie intake fundamentally, then you can look at protein intake and that kind of stuff. Things make more sense because you've kind of like a hierarchy there. So just with the analogy of the car journey, like starting something without having a proper reason why behind it is like getting in a car and going somewhere without an actual overall destination to where you're going, right? Now, the thing is, I don't want people to think that your why has to be a destination and when you get there you're done or you stop. It's not really about that. The kind of why is like the bigger picture thing that it's always going to kind of be there, if that makes sense, and it might tweak and change over the years. But like, think about it in a car journey, that if you don't have an overall destination and you hop in that car and you're driving for hours on end, how do you know where you're going? How do you know what route to take? How do you know what are the best roads to take, shortest routes to take to get you to that destination in the first place? And even though you might set like, right, I want to go to Dublin first and then I want to go to France, you could look at that as like a short-term goal and a long-term goal, like to get to Dublin first and go to France. But again, when you get to France, like where are you going in the first place? Like that's where, again, having that reason why behind that is so paramount. So like, I'm using the analogy here of, let's just pretend, if that destination is not really a destination, but let's just pretend that your overall why was to travel the world, right? And you had a route, you do like the best kind of route to do that. This is where then, again, you can emphasize the long-term goals and short-term goals would be like specific destinations along the way that you have to tick off the list. But again, you have a reason why behind you going to those destinations. You'll have routes mapped out, which is the shortest way, the best way, the fastest way, the most scenic way, things to do along the way, all that kind of crack. And you'll enjoy the process. You'll enjoy going to that destination. You'll enjoy hitting your kind of short-term goals because you know there's an overall bigger picture reason why behind it in the first place. You're traveling the fucking world, like. So if somebody, again, they're going on that journey, they have a reason why behind it. It's like like somebody starting something in the gym or starting a diet, whatever it is. They start something that's too unrealistic for them. They might start something that they're trying to get a shortcut to a short-term goal. And if you think of that like driving your car down a shitty road compared to the motorway en route to, we'll say, Galway to Dublin, for example, 3-hour car journey, 2.5-hour car journey, whatever it is, a short-term goal in this case. If you're driving down kind of pothole roads and big hilly roads and roads that are going to wreck your car, you could look at that as kind of going down like a short-term kind of crappy diet, if you like, that's going to literally just set you back for the long term. It's going to leave you fed up and pissed off, and even though you might get a bit of results in the first place, you could have still got to Dublin maybe even you could have got that short-term goal in a shorter time frame, but how you got there is being kind of messed up, and it's kind of banjacks your car along the way, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of changing between short-term goals here and short-term journeys. I hope you're kind of still with me on that. But the idea is that, like, if you're taking that shortcut in the first place, which is something that could be unrealistic, could be a training plan that's just way too much and not needed, could be a diet that's just fucking daft and stupid and again not needed, you're just going to wreck your car, and then you're going to want to go back to square one again, because you need time to kind of fix the car up and just kind of relax a bit and get ready to go on that journey again. But again, you're going back to square one, whereas you're not kind of months and years down the line into your kind of, we'll say, journey, if you like. So even though that approach, like let's just say you had a friend then that was they tried a certain diet as well, and they got on fine with it, they lost some weight, they might have a lifestyle that allows them to kind of be that fucking strict and disciplined with that kind of shitty diet, if you like. They mightn't have kids, they mightn't have a stressful job, and they might fool themselves. They might just have great discipline to stick to that in the first place. And yeah, they might have got results, but like, believe me, it's not going to be a long-term sustainable thing for them. There will come a point in time where they'll hit a wall and they'll realise that this is just absolutely daft. It's highly unrealistic. And while it might work for the short-term thing, what is the point? Because in the long run, like the months after, you're just going to be back at square one again. So again, back to that car journey. You have an overall kind of reason why behind doing what you're doing. It's going to give you a bigger picture as to where your long-term goals are, where your short-term goals are, and you just reverse engineer it from there. And then if you're driving, let's just say you're driving along and your bigger picture is to travel the world, your why, so to speak, and you're going on a long-term, you're trying to chase down a long-term goal, you're hitting short-term targets. And you could be just pissed off one time of driving along, because driving can be boring at times, like, and it's just like kind of ticking off boxes with your nutrition, with your training, like being a calorie deficit to drop body fat, making sure that you're doing, for resistance training across the week to get stronger and build muscle tissue, muscle tone for the ladies is the same thing. And at times that can get a bit kind of monotonous, like it's the kind of same thing, you're kind of taking boxes off the list, and that's why we're so big on kind of setting like mini challenges for our members, going and doing events and outings, that kind of stuff, and making the fun aspect of it a big part of it too, because that really helps along the way as well. Like, it's like doing a diet. Like, if you're following kind of principles that are kind of realistic, they're set in stone, you're following an energy balance principle, for example, you're in a calorie deficit, there's hundreds of different ways to go about the calorie deficit. Like are you having, is the way you're going about it enjoyable? Is it flexible for you? Is it suited to your lifestyle? All those kind of questions come into play as well. So they're just points that you need to realise, because although you could have a bigger picture reason why behind what you're doing, and you could have a long-term goal, you have a short-term goal, if you go about it the wrong way, it's only going to last so fucking long in the first place. So this is why the importance of knowing or getting into proper courses, teaching you principles over fucking meal plans or diet plans or some random diet, or saying that ketogenic diet is better than intermittent fasting, that it's better than this, that and the other. That's bullshit. Like, again, there's overriding principles at play there that are going to be suited to your lifestyle, your needs and your preferences, and your nutrition daily to drop body fat. It should be enjoyable, it should be flexible, at least in some form, no more so than your training should be. But again, I want this kind of short Monday Thoughts episode to drive home the point that if you don't have a stronger reason why behind doing what you're doing, motivation is not going to be there in the long run. You're not going to want to keep going when the days get tough. You're not going to keep going kind of, so to speak, when the driving gets boring as such. But you're just not going to have any long-term direction either. It's like going on a short-term journey, but when you get to them, you're like, okay, where the fuck do I go from here? Like, what's the story? Okay, oh yeah, sure, just get a bit fitter. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's nothing there driving you, and that's where then 6 to 7 weeks in, things start to taper off. The gym becomes like just another thing that you tried out and it wasn't for you, and you fool yourself into thinking that, and then you're back to square one, and a few months later you're trying to do something again, but because what you're after doing now is what you did before, you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that again because that didn't work for me. Because people, again, people only kind of pull from the tools they have and the tools they have at play and what has worked for them in the past, and that's why people get stuck in such fucking ruts. But at the end of the day, fundamentally from this episode, have a reason why behind doing what you're doing. It's not just to lose some weight and tone up. Why do you want to lose that weight in the first place? Is it for self-confidence? Is it for self-esteem? Is it because you've been hiding under hoodies the last 2 years and you want to have a social life again with your friends and not feel embarrassed to wear the clothes you do used to wear? Is it to be a role model for the kids? Is it to feel comfortable fucking being naked in front of your partner? These are massive kind of bigger picture reasons why, but again, you need to find those for you. And again, like, it could be simple as like you want to prove to yourself that you can do something. There are big reasons why that people forget. After they have the big reason why, and then you can set a long-term goal. Like, the long-term goal then could be specific with that. It could be losing X amount of pounds to get back into that clothes, that dress, or whatever it is, losing X amount of body fat, whatever way you kind of want to measure that. But that could be a long-term goal so you can feel more confident again, for example. And then the short-term goal then is literally just the long-term goal breaking down to a short-term. So like usually like long-term we look at like anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Short-term then we look at like 6 to 12 weeks type things and kind of keep setting those that'll build up to the longer-term goal. So look, I know I kind of went about that in and out different ways, but hopefully it makes sense. It's just the kind of car journey and having that why there in the first place, because if you don't, you're just going to be driving destination to destination, not knowing where the hell you're fucking going, and you're just going to end up driving home because you haven't a clue what you're at, and you're just going to go back to square one. So guys, hopefully that was helpful, and again, thank you for tuning in. And if you don't know what Monday Thoughts episodes are all about, again, they're just literally short to the point episodes where I do a couple maybe once, twice a month. I do these usually over on Instagram in a post format of a Monday evening, and this is kind of what replaces those when I find I have a topic or a thought process or a question that just needs answered and kind of brought out in audio format. So hopefully they're helpful. They're little just tidbits of information and analogies behind certain little points and topics that will hopefully help you move forward with things. But if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, if this is your first time listening to it, be sure to subscribe over on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And that's about it, really. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll chat to you soon. Bye-bye.